Good afternoon, new Master Gardeners. My name is Steve Cox. I am a Master Gardener for the past 7 years, since 2011, and I'm here today to present you my presentation on backyard fruits. If you notice on this first screen, we've had some technical difficulties trying to do some things a little different. You just have to kind of live with us on that. Apologize. So, backyard fruits. What is backyard fruit production? Well, backyard fruit production is when you are trying to do small types of fruit in your backyard that are suited towards whatever the particular situation you have in your backyard. As a master gardener, we hope to accomplish two things today. One, to show you a little bit about backyard fruit and how to go about growing it. Second, and just as important, is Dr. Elmore asked me to do this so that you understand that as a master gardener, doing slide presentations is something that's relatively easy to do, and it's something that we encourage all new master gardeners to get involved in. So backyard fruit, here we go. First thing, selecting the plant. What do you do? First thing I always tell anyone when I'm doing this presentation is to take the plant out of the pot. There should be some roots on the outside edge of the soil of the pot and the soil line, but it shouldn't be such a tight root ball that all the roots just seem to be hanging out right there at the edge where the pot and the soil mix. Next, look at the leaves and the stems. Do you see any signs of insect damage? Do you see any signs of scale? If you do, you want to walk away from these plants. Third, and this is important because I have blown this on several occasions, check and see if there's any hidden damage to branches and trunks. I once bought a tree, thought it was a beautiful tree, and it turned out that hidden underneath a bunch of leaves was a crack in the main growing branch of the trunk. And it didn't work out too well, that one. So let's talk about fruit trees for a second here. Here are three fruit trees that I took a picture of down at one of our big box stores here on the east side of Pasco County. And my question to you as new master gardeners is, which one of these trees is going to grow best? The large one, by the way, the large one is $180. The middle one is 42. It's a little hard to see the foliage on there, but you can see the orange sign. And the bottom one is a $24 tree, and the middle one is a $42 tree. So if you were picking a tree to grow in your backyard, and your main goal was which tree is going to grow best, biggest, fastest, and produce the most fruit, which one are you going to choose? Often, it is the smaller tree that will take the transplant better, grow faster, and produce more fruit. There may be a year or so that there's no fruit by any of the trees, but that small tree, after a year, adapts to its new soil conditions better and faster. So, planting a fruit tree. In this presentation, if I'm saying planting a fruit tree, these are the things that you should automatically check off as you look for. One, always choose a location in full sunlight. If you have to lose sunlight for part of the day, my preference is to have morning sunlight versus afternoon. But truly, fruit trees need a minimum of 8 and probably 10 hours of direct sunlight every day. Second, dig the hole that you're going to plant in twice the width of the root ball, but at the same depth as the root ball. In most cases, the planting hole depth should be about the same as the root ball, like I just said. There will be a couple of occasions that we talk about in this presentation where that is not true, but I'll specifically talk about that to you when we get to those. Biggie, do not backfill the hole with potting soil. When you do that, what you're really getting is you're putting the plant into a larger plant, or a larger pot, so to speak, and the roots have a tendency not to spread out as well. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your roots have to push out into the native soils out there so that they have got are getting themselves situated and acclimated to the growing conditions that they're going to have to survive in. Water the plant in, making sure that all the air pockets are out. Do not compact the soil in any way, but make sure the soil is firm and touching all the roots. Then water every 1 to 2 days for the first 3 weeks, then twice a week after that until the rainy season. I always, in most of my presentations, say to the rainy season, because once you get into the rainy season, unless we go 10 to 12 days without any rain, plants should survive from that point on. Sorry, Jim, you guys know Jim Mall. Jim just interrupted me with a note, so what the heck. So here we go a little further. I'll sell Jim down the river any point in time that I can. Water the tree every 2 to 3 days, like I said, then once after 3 weeks, twice a week until the rainy season. Fertilize most fruit plants, trees in March, May, and September. I like to fertilize real close to the last frost date in my area. I live in East Pasco County. Our last frost date is about March 13th. The west side of the county, your last frost date is a couple of weeks earlier than that. I like to fertilize right before the rainy season starts, so late May, and then again right as the rainy season is ending. Never ever fertilize fruit trees or vines or whatever after September. Most of the fruit trees that we're going to be talking about have to go into some type of dormancy. Let's talk a little bit about stone fruit. Stone fruits include peaches, plums, and nectarines, and stone fruits are quite viable in Pasco County. In the state of Florida, the University of Florida has come up with a number of what they call subtropical peach or subtropical stone fruits. And these are trees that require a specific amount of chill hours that are basically geared for our location. What is a chill hour? A chill hour is when the nighttime temperatures are below 45 degrees, or daytime, doesn't matter there. Nighttime temperatures are below 45 but above 32. Most of the peaches for our area have a requirement of about 100 to 250 chill hours per year. If you want to know the chill hours for your area or our area, you can go to a website. If you just Google FAWN in large capital letters, the first or second thing that is going to pop up is the Florida Automated Weather Network. And in there, if you go look into some of the help or the tools, you're going to find a thing called Chill Hours Calculator. That website for going direct to that is right there on the bottom thing, on the bottom bullet. In what you're looking for is to see how many chill hours do we have or not have for a given year. This year, 2017-18, we hit almost 300 chill hours. So the unusual thing this year was they came in December and January and again in March and April. February became quite hot. Trees budded out a little bit. It was a bit of a problem, but we managed to pull through. 2016-17, however, we only got about 110 chill hours. I did produce some fruit with my peaches that year, but it was not as much as we normally produce. So check out that fawn area thing, fawn website, and the chill hours calculator on there. Next, follow the general planting rules that we've talked about, except for stone fruit plant root balls like to be up about 1 inch above ground level. Stone fruits, peaches, plums, nectarines, like to drop their roots kind of down, umbrellaing down a little bit to get those hair roots or those feeder roots out in the edge. So plant them just a little bit high, not a whole lot. Make sure, again, you water in, make sure you're backfilling with the same soil. Best time to plant stone fruit is, in my opinion, is early fall or late fall or early winter. It gives the plant a chance to acclimate towards its new area, and it's not stressed because it's not trying to produce any leaves or trying to have a lot of energy being produced to try to produce fruit. Generally, it will take you about 2 years to get a fruit tree, a stone fruit tree, to produce fruit. You might see some you may see some fruits being set in the second year, but generally they don't hold until the end. On my 2-year-old peaches that I've got right now this year, they carried, 2 trees carried 1 piece of fruit each. Fertilize around the drip edge again in mid-February, mid-April, and mid-June. And after pruning, in June, after the pruning that you're going to give them, we're going to talk about that in just a second, and fertilize with a good 828 or similar number fertilizer with trace elements. Try to find a fertilizer that has at least 50% of its nitrogen coming from a water insoluble nitrogen source. All stone fruit trees will set a large amount of fruit. And I mean, you'll get maybe 6, 7, 8 blooms per every 3 to 4 inches. The tree cannot support that fruit. What you've got to do, what the tree does to save itself from all that fruit being set, is it grows a whole lot. My phone just went off. I apologize. What it does is the fruit tree sets out a hormone that causes all the fruit to remain about the size of a ping pong ball. Well, that's not something you want to do here in the state, in anywhere that you're trying to grow fruit trees. You want to get that fruit up to the 3 to 4 inch diameter if you possibly can. So what we suggest you do is, once the fruit has set, and this is important, do not do it with the bloom. Once the fruit has set, put your hand on the branch, and basically if you make a fist around the branch, that fist is about 3.5 to 4 inches, maybe 5 in diameter. So what you do is you just keep working out the branch, breaking off all fruit that's not on the outside of your fist. So you just move up the branch, break off anything in between, and that gives you about 1 piece of fruit every 4 to 5 inches. That's very important. You're going to be taking off somewhere between 40 and 60% of the drupelets, small pieces of fruit, have to be taken off. And this process has to go on until the tree stops blooming. From fruit set to harvest, a good spray program is important. My suggestion for the backyard fruit grower is neem oil and or soap, dish soap, not detergent, and vegetable oil. And the University of Florida and all master gardeners, once you've gone through this course, will learn very quickly what that soap and vegetable oil ratio is. After all fruit is picked, you need to prune back your tree and take about 30 to 40% of the foliage off of the tree and shape the tree so that it's in a hollow bowl, literally so that the top looking down is open, and all the way around it you have scaffolding branches with a hollow center. You want to get as much sunlight as possible into that center of that plant. Once you've done that, and you fertilize again in April or fertilize again in June, you just let the tree go generally until the end of the growing season. In Florida, and I don't know why these things look a little funny, please forgive me there. In Florida and in our area, these are the best varieties of peaches for our particular area. For 100 chill hours, if you live on the west side of the county, my suggestion, those would be the ones you want to look for. That would be UF Sun, University of Florida Sun, and UF Best. In the center of the county and on the east side, I also like Tropic Beauty. In fact, I will say this, of all the peaches that I think you can grow in our area, Tropic Beauty is, I think, the best variety for me anyway. It's almost a ruby red flesh when it's allowed to mature and ripen fully on the tree. East side of the county, you can also do UF Beauty, UF1, and UFO, which I have all 3 of those in my yard also. And they require 200 to 250 chill hours. Again, east side of the county, generally we have somewhere just under 300 chill hours per year. central part of the county, it's probably closer to 200 to 250, and the west side of the county, it's probably closer to the 150 to 200 range. So know the varieties. You're not probably going to find these at big box stores. You're going to have to look and hunt a little bit to find those varieties that are best for your situation. If I was going to tell any gardener in the state of Florida, or in our area, the state of Florida, if you could only grow one particular crop in your yard in a compact area, it would be blueberries. If you look at this photograph, you can see my blueberries, and this year I had a good crop. They're not ripe. I had to take the photo before they ripened up this year to start this presentation, and so they look a little green. But if you look close, you can see I've got quite a good crop there. Um, my wife and I generally are somewhere between the 20 to 25 pound range per year. We have 12 blueberry bushes. Blueberries, though, are a different animal than most other. Blueberries in Florida come from two varieties, our native rabbit eye and a southern high bush, which is hybridized for our area. For the backyard grower, the high bush is probably the better plant, or the relatively easier for us to grow. Although in the past few days, and since I've put this presentation together, I'm becoming curious about those rabbit eyes. I've got a friend of mine who I believe is growing some rabbit eyes, and the beauty of the rabbit eye is it seems to ripen its fruit about a month later. Stay tuned for that. I'll have more information on that in 4 or 5 months, hopefully. Blueberries, though, need acidic soil. They have to have a pH range between 4.5 and 5.5. High bush blueberries also like a high amount of organic material in their soil, about 3% or better. And for Florida sandy soils, that's quite a bit. This is the only plant that I ever tell people to do. This can only be achieved by using Canadian peat moss and pine bark. Most of our blueberries have about 150 to 200 chill hours, so most anywhere in the Pasco County you can grow it. But I want to go back for a second and talk about planting instructions. No, I've got it next page. Okay, here we go. So what you do, blueberries need to be planted in full sun again. Again, you dig the hole twice as wide as the pot, but again, you're going to keep the root system about 1 inch above the lay of the natural soil. You backfill that pot, or that hole that you've dug, with Canadian sphagnum peat. This is the only time I tell you to do that. And the reason for that is blueberries demand that high acidity, and Canadian sphagnum peat is the only way to get them started with that. For blueberries, it is almost growing the blueberry in the ground in a pot when you dig it and put the sphagnum peat back in there. Plant the blueberries, at least 4 to 6 blueberry plants in your area, and put them on 3-foot centers. That's a little bit wider than what a commercial blueberry gardener will do, but the reason for that is I think if they've got a little bit more space, they get a little bit more airflow going through them, and you get a little bit less problems with thripes, with mildew, with mold problems, and that's why I've got them a little bit further apart. But again, my 12 blueberry plants are only in an area of about 12 by 12. So that it's not this huge big area in my backyard. It is good idea to install a very good drip, and there's no space right there, there's a typo. Install a good drip irrigation system. This is going to save you in the long run. It's going to keep the foliage dry most of the time, and it's going to put water right on the roots. Water those blueberry plants 3 times a week until the plant is well established. That's generally, again, if you plant in late December, January, if you're planting then, you're generally going to carry this plant with watering through to the rainy season. Do not let the plant set any fruit that first spring. It's one of the hardest things as a gardener that we tell people to do, but you literally need to take every bloom off the tree that first year. You want the tree to put as much of its energy as possible that first year into the growth and the health of the plant. In particular, I was very fortunate this year. I found in a big box store a variety of blueberries that I like a lot. I needed one to replace one that I had probably killed because I'd walked on it too much the year before picking blueberries, and found this. And I'm showing you this picture because you can see I've dug the hole about twice as wide as the pot itself. You can see that I've got tons of pine bark in there. And if you look at the sandy soil on the sides there, you can see that it's speckled very heavily with little dark flakes. That's mainly the old sphagnum peat that I put in, and also the breaking down of the pine bark. Pine bark is an important element to blueberries. You've got to keep the pH range somewhere between 4.5 and 5.5, which is on the acidity side. I fertilize with an azalea fertilizer. You can find some azalea camellia fertilizers that are organic. I prefer organics if I possibly can. Again, I'm looking for a fertilizer that has as high a water insoluble count as possible. Mulch with pine bark, not cypress, not eucalyptus, not anything else but pine bark. The reason for that, pine bark is the highest acidic mulch that you can do. So if you're growing camellias or azaleas and you want to mulch with pine bark. Blueberries like that acidity also. And what happens if it gets above that 5.5, the plant is starting to have difficulty in absorbing nutrients because of the higher pH of the soil. When the bush is holding fruit, water it twice a week, rest of the year once a week if there's no rain that week. Plants may need to be sprayed with neem oil in the summer to control some mites and thripes. I can tell you in my particular situation, though, that my blueberry plants are one of the lower maintenance plants that I've got in my yard, in my fruit yard. After all fruit has been harvested, blueberries need to be pruned. You need to take that top 30% of that plant back off. It's almost like giving them a flat top. And you say, oh, but they're so nice and I'll get so much. They need to be brought back down to about a 3-foot high bush, 3.5-foot high bush. Give them a really nice dose of fertilizer at that point in time. You're going to get this new flush of very green growth starting right this time of year. Mine right now are just covered in brand new growth, and they're looking great for next year. But it's again because I went back late or early May after all my fruit was off, trimmed them back. Once the new flush of growth has started, do not trim again until the next year. And again, those are just my blueberries before they ripen. As you can see, there's quite a bit. This next picture, and I apologize, I'm fairly happy guy, but I'm not. I look like I'm frowning there. But you can see that's right after a pruning, and I've pruned back to about just thigh high. They're about 3.5 feet high. And that's all you want. And you can see, you're looking at right there probably about 75% of my blueberry bed. There again, there's only 12 plants, but 25 pounds. The varieties for our area that I personally grow Emerald the most. I like it a lot. The Jewel, the Star, the Sapphire, the Windsor, and the Spring High are all very good varieties to grow here also. Again, like I said at the very start, I'm going to start experimenting over the next few months, year, with trying to find some rabbit eye. I've got a friend, like I said, who I believe is growing the rabbit eye, unbeknownst to him or I. And I may very well try to propagate some of the cuttings from him, but that's another story. Next, grapes. The one thing I tell anyone about Florida grapes is either you love them or you hate them. Florida grapes are the best grapes for Florida are muscadines. They are a very thick skinned. They have seeds, but if you like muscadine grapes, they are one of the, in my opinion, one of the tastiest grapes that anyone can grow. According to the Old Tampa Tribune on July 16, 2015, our muscadine grapes have the highest concentration of antioxidants of any fruit that a Florida gardener can grow. If you're into looking for health food, Florida muscadine grapes are that health food for us. They again are relatively easy to grow. They are resistant to Pierce disease. The Pierce disease is what attacks wine grapes in the state of Florida and the what we call the bunching grapes in the state of Florida. You just can't grow them here because of that. Planting. Grapes need to be spaced out in rows about 12 feet apart. You've got to have some room to grow grapes. After growing grapes in several different setups, I think the Geneva double curtain system, we'll show you that in just a second, is the best for the Florida gardener. And when next slide, I'll explain that a little bit. Establish the plant to a height of about 48 to 54 inches. That means one trunk going straight up. Allow that trunk, once it gets to that 48 to 54 inch height, to split off into two shoots, one going out to each of my guide wires. Once the two shoots reach the support wires, split that into two more shoots, letting the cordons grow up and down the wire towards the support post. According to University of Florida, this particular support setup can lead to an additional 10 to 15% more grapes over some of the other types of support. Fertilize the grapes again with an 828 with trace elements, always 828, always with trace elements, I should say. And again, March, June, and August, about 1 foot away from the vine the first year, after that in March and June, and apply about 2 pounds of fertilizer for each application in the second year, and then in the third year you're going to apply about 3 pounds, not in each application, but that's for the year. Once you reach that fourth year, you stay at about 4 pounds per grapevine for the year. So it's not a real heavy fertilizing program that you've got for the grapes. Never ever lime around grapes. Okay, that is a picture this winter of the Geneva support system that my grapes are on. As you can see, what I've got is I've got fence posts in the yard. I've got the 2x4s across the top of the fence post, and I've got two wires running the length of those between posts. And that once that grape gets out to those guide wires, I split it so that I've got a main lateral run going down each direction of the guide wire to the fence post. Once it gets to the next fence post, I kind of stop them at that point in time. Grapes need to be pruned back. Something happened there. Grapes should be pruned back to about the third or fourth growing bud on each of the lateral lines coming off the main shoot, off the support. Remember, unlike many fruits, grapes grow their fruit on this year's growth. Peaches, blueberries, what we've talked about so far, grow their fruit on last year's wood. Grapes grow them on this year's wood. If you look at that this is 2 months later from the same picture of the same grapes, and you can look at that picture quite nicely and quite well, and you can see that there are all kinds of little green grapes in there that are doing quite nicely. Grapes for Florida generally ripen in in August and September. My area, it always seems like it's about August the 1st. What I suggest for anyone is that the varieties are great for Central Florida. You're going to need to have two kinds. You're going to need to have self-fruiting grapes, and you're going to need pollinating or need pollinators. Of the self-fruiting, meaning that they'll pollinate themselves, the Pollyanna, the Noble, and the Carlos are all great. For those that need pollination, you're going to find the Summit, the Pam, and the Fry, and I'm very particularly fond of the Fry grape as the ones that need. So what do you do there? What I do is I'll plant a Noble, and then I'll plant a Fry. Then I'll plant a Pollyanna, then I'll plant a Summit, and then I'll plant a Carlos, and then I'll plant a Pam, so that I've got the completed the vines that have complete flowers in between the vines that don't have complete flowers.